that ninth grade year, right? It can feel like this huge turning point, a real mix of looking forward to something new and maybe feeling a little unsteady.
Absolutely.
Maybe you remember that feeling yourself, where you're seeing someone close, navigate it right now.
Yeah.
It's this interesting blend of excitement and maybe that little bit of, can I really do this?
Absolutely. And in this deep dive, we're going to really unpack what makes that ninth grade experience so unique. We've got some fascinating insights from a document that gets right into the core of what's happening developmentally, around ages 14 and 15.
Exactly. And this isn't just for folks directly involved, whether you're a student stepping into those high school hallways or a caregiver figuring out the best way to offer support, or even just someone curious about how adolescents grow and change. This is really for you.
Right.
Our goal is to kind of go beyond the surface level assumptions about ninth grade.
Yeah, get past the cliches.
And really understand the key shifts cognitively, emotionally, socially, academically, and what challenges and supports tend to matter most. Think of it as getting the essential roadmap for this really significant stage.
And what's so valuable about this document we're looking at is that it provides a really holistic perspective. It doesn't just look at one area in isolation,
Right.
but shows how these cognitive, emotional, social, and academic changes are all, interconnected.
Okay, let's dive right into something the document calls the myth of readiness.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
this idea that, entering high school suddenly flips some switch and a young person is just ready, like full independence.
Right. Like they should suddenly nail homework, have perfect time management.
Handle every emotional curveball, make flawless decisions. Sounds good in theory, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
But as the document so wisely points out, thinking of ninth graders as fully ready, well, it's like putting new drivers in adult-sized vehicles still learning how to steer,
That's a great analogy.
isn't it? They might look the part, they're in the high school setting, but their internal skills are still very much developing.
Okay.
So the core insight here is, don't mistake high school entry for instant maturity. It's about scaffolding, not expecting full independence right away.
Exactly. And the document really emphasizes that ninth grade isn't about suddenly being a master of all these things. It's more about building systems that can be improved over time.
Yes, building systems. That takes practice and, yeah, probably a few missteps along the way.
Right.
That's normal.
Totally normal.
Precisely. And it's crucial to remember that executive functioning skills, things like planning, prioritizing, remembering tasks, managing emotions, these continue to mature well into the late teens.
Way beyond ninth grade.
Oh, absolutely. So expecting a fully formed executive function at 14 or 15 simply isn't realistic.
And what I found particularly interesting is how the document mentions you might even see some temporary dips in areas where a kid seemed more capable before.
Right. Regression.
Yeah, it's like they're stretching themselves in new ways, maybe tackling tougher academics or navigating more complex social stuff. And that can temporarily pull resources, energy from other areas. It's all part of that messy but totally normal growth process.
Absolutely. And if you think about the whole developmental landscape, cognitively, we see some really exciting leaps happening.
Okay, like what?
Well, they're starting to grasp more abstract ideas, think with a longer-term perspective. Their problem-solving, critical thinking, ability to see different viewpoints, that's really starting to come online.
That sounds pretty advanced.
It is. But here's the catch. While their capacity for abstract thought is growing, their ability to consistently apply the organizational skills to manage all the details that's still under construction.
Right. So they might be able to talk about their college dreams.
Yeah.
But actually mapping out the steps to get there, sticking to a study schedule week after week, that can still feel like a huge hurdle.
Exactly that. And there's also this increased self-evaluation and comparison that kicks in, especially in that often more competitive high school environment.
Oh, yeah, the comparison track.
Big time. They're constantly measuring their achievements, their looks, their social life against their peers, which can definitely amplify pressure.
And then you layer on the emotional world of a ninth grader. The document talks about heightened self-consciousness, this intense awareness of how they think others are perceiving them. That sounds really vulnerable.
It is, and they're also experiencing these really intense emotions, big feelings,
Right.
but their ability to regulate those emotions, so you kind of hit the pause button or shift gears when feeling overwhelmed, that skill's still developing.
Right.
Think of it like having a very powerful engine, but still learning how to use the brakes effectively.
That makes sense. And isn't it also that classic adolescent push-pull, like They really crave that freedom and
Oh,
independence.
yeah.
But maybe when faced with the full weight of those things, it can feel pretty daunting, even scary. That's a real tightrope walk.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And this is also a pivotal time for identity formation. They're starting to really solidify their core beliefs about the world, what's right and wrong, relationships, and fundamentally who they are as individuals. These are the foundational pieces being laid down.
Now, the document had an interesting section outlining potential gender-based trends we might see in ninth grade, looking at academics, social behavior, emotional expression, that kind of thing.
Yeah, what's really key to remember here, and the document stresses this, is that these are trends, not absolute rules.
Right, not destinies.
Exactly. It specifically states that gender stereotypes aren't universal. What we're seeing are just some potential patterns in how individuals might navigate growth, risk, and change. And these can sometimes correlate with gender.
Okay.
The central insight is,
Hmm.
remember, these are just potential patterns, not prescriptions. Focus on the individual kid.
Right. So, for instance, it mentioned maybe girls leaning towards being more organized academically, but perhaps also more prone to overthinking things.
Potentially, yeah.
Whereas maybe boys might show more confidence sometimes, but struggle more with sticking to deadlines. Socially, maybe girls prioritizing smaller, closer friend groups, while boys might bond more through shared activities.
Those are some of the potential trends mentioned, yeah.
Yeah,
It's about understanding possible tendencies, not fitting anyone into a rigid box.
got it. So don't reinforce stereotypes, just be aware there can be different developmental pathways.
Exactly. Ultimately, it comes down to understanding the specific young person you're interacting with.
Okay, that leads us right into what the document calls the second wave of identity development. It introduces this idea of a crystallization period in ninth grade. That sounds significant.
It really is. Building on earlier childhood explorations, ninth grade often marks a point where these young people start asking themselves more directly, okay, what kind of person am I actually becoming? It's a time of really testing the values they've maybe just accepted before, exploring different facets of their identity, maybe gender, sexual orientation, even political views. It's about answering that core question. Who am I, separate from my family?
So there's a lot of internal searching happening, plus this heightened awareness of how their peers see them. And they start kind of refining their self-understanding based on that feedback. It sounds like a really dynamic and, well, sometimes turbulent process.
It definitely can be. And the document offers some really valuable guidance on how to support this. It emphasizes that, you don't have to agree with every single idea or viewpoint they're exploring.
Right.
But the crucial thing is to make room for exploration. Just allow the space for it.
That's such a critical point, creating that safe space for them to figure things out without feeling judged or shut down.
Yeah.
And the document suggests asking open-ended questions like, what are you curious about lately? Or who are the people you look up to and why? Those feel like great ways to encourage self-reflection without being intrusive.
Absolutely. They're invitations, not interrogations. And it's also wise to remember that identity development isn't like a fixed destination you arrive at in ninth grade.
Good point.
They continue to evolve, and that's perfectly normal and healthy. The goal is really to support the ongoing journey of self-discovery.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the academic side of ninth grade. The document highlights a pretty significant jump in workload and expectations.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems to move beyond just showing up and participating to a much stronger focus on produce and perform.
That's a really important distinction. The academic content itself becomes more rigorous, and the stakes start to feel higher.
How so?
Well, as the document outlines, in English language arts, they're diving into more in-depth literary analysis, crafting persuasive arguments. Math often involves foundational courses like Algebra the First, or maybe two, geometry critical building blocks, especially for future STEM fields. Science typically covers biology, maybe fundamentals of chemistry, with a greater emphasis on lab work and scientific inquiry. Social studies often delves into world history, civics, government.
Plus electives.
Exactly. Plus, they're often navigating elective choices, arts, tech, world languages. The core insight is, ninth grade marks a significant shift from participation to performance in academics.
It really sounds like a whole new level of academic demand, and for some students that transition can feel like, well, a real shock to the system.
It definitely can. And that's where the support from parents or caregivers becomes so crucial. But the document provides some really thoughtful guidance on how to support, without crossing that line into over-involvement.
Okay.
It includes a helpful do's and avoids list.
Oh, good. Let's break that down. On the do side.
It emphasizes asking guiding questions rather than just giving instructions or answers.
Okay.
Things like, what's your plan for tackling this assignment? Or what's one thing that's going well for you in this subject? It's about empowering them to develop their own problem-solving skills.
Ah, building their capacity. The core insight here. Focus on guiding questions to build problem-solving skills.
Exactly. Fostering their ability to think things through, not just handing them the answers. The document also highlights offering logistical support, helping them maybe set up organizational systems, find useful digital tools, even coaching them on time management strategies.
Practical stuff.
Really practical skills that can make a huge difference with the increased workload.
And I really appreciated the reminder to simply show up, for games, performances, presentations, without adding any pressure or judgment.
Yes, just being physically present.
That quiet support can mean the world. And the suggestion to keep those lines of emotional communication open, even through something as simple as a quick text check-in or a brief chat in the car, that feels very doable.
Those consistent micro moments of connection, they can be incredibly powerful. So the core insight is presence and open communication are key supports.
Okay, now what about the avoid list?
Right. Some of these might seem obvious, but they're definitely worth highlighting. Hovering over every assignment.
Helicopter.
Exactly. Constantly comparing them to others, especially siblings or peers, those behaviors can really undermine their confidence. The core insight, avoid hovering in comparisons.
Absolutely. And that urge to jump in and, email teachers or solve every academic or social problem for them unless they explicitly ask for help. That's a tough one for caregivers.
It is. It's a delicate balance to strike.
Yeah.
And finally, the document makes a really insightful point. Don't misinterpret their natural developmental need for independence as personal detachment or rejection.
Oh, that's huge.
It's not about how they feel about you.
Yeah.
And it includes this fantastic quote, "I'm not here to control you. I'm here to help you build the tools to lead yourself."
Oh.
Doesn't that just capture the supportive role we should aim for? The core insight? Their independence isn't detachment, it's growth.
That's such a powerful reframe. Okay, so with all these significant changes and increased pressures, it's no surprise that ninth grade can also be a time of heightened stress.
For sure.
The document lists some common stressors. Academic pressure, feeling like they're falling behind peers, navigating new or shifting friendships, social anxiety in those unfamiliar high school environments, and those big identity questions we just talked about.
Right. But what's helpful is that the document also provides some concrete strategies for navigating these stressful moments.
Okay, good. Like what?
It suggests normalizing struggle, reminding them you're not failing, you're learning to stretch.
Ooh, I like that phrasing.
Yeah, it can really shift their perspective on challenges. The core insight, reframe struggle is a learning opportunity.
Makes sense. What else?
Breaking down large, overwhelming tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. Seems simple, but really practical advice. And I like the idea of establishing calm routines, maybe listening to music together, sharing a healthy snack, taking a short walk as a way to kind of regulate emotions before trying to tackle the underlying issue.
Like a reset button.
Exactly. And the concept of offering emergency exits, maybe even something as simple as a code word they can text if they need to leave an uncomfortable social situation that can provide a real sense of security and control in moments that feel overwhelming.
That's clever. Okay, now this is a phrase that really stood out to me in the document. The pressure to perform versus the permission to explore. It feels like that perfectly captures a central tension of ninth grade.
It really does.
Yeah.
This is often the year when they start hearing the message, okay, this really counts now.
Right, the GPA start.
GPA starts.
Right.
College conversations begin to surface. Sports get more competitive. Social dynamics can feel incredibly high stakes.
Yeah.
And the document astutely points out the potential downsides of this intense pressure burnout for the high achievers. Avoidance for those feeling overwhelmed, and even an identity crisis for young people who haven't yet found their sense of belonging or feel like they have to perform in a certain way.
Yeah.
The core tension, balancing performance pressure with the need for exploration.
But the document also strongly emphasizes that exploration is still incredibly valuable during this time.
Absolutely critical.
It encourages involvement in diverse clubs, trying out different electives, pursuing hobbies, even allowing for natural shifts in friend groups.
Oh, yeah.
It's about reminding them that trying new things, even if they don't stick, still provides valuable insights about themselves. Reframing failure as experimentation, that seems like a really healthy mindset shift.
It really is the
Yeah.
core insight. Reframe failure as valuable experimentation. Trying something and deciding it's not for you. That's learning.
That's still a win, in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can't really discuss the intensity of ninth grade without touching on mental health.
Hmm.
The document highlights that mental health challenges can often emerge or intensify during this period, but, and this is important, they might not always present in obvious ways.
Oh, so?
They can manifest in more subtle shifts in behavior or mood.
Yes. The table in the document linking subtle sign to possible underlying issue was quite revealing. Like persistent tiredness
Hmm.
could be a sign of underlying depression, sleep issues, or just emotional overload.
Right. Or a sudden reluctance to participate in activities they used to enjoy might indicate social anxiety, maybe a peer conflict, or even feelings of shame about not being good enough at it anymore.
And that seemingly dismissive school's just dumb comment
Yeah.
could actually be a form of avoidance rooted in fear of failure, maybe perfectionism, or just feeling inadequate.
Exactly. Even seemingly minor things like obsessive checking grades, social media, appearance can be indicators of underlying anxiety or low self-esteem. The core insight here: pay attention to subtle shifts in behavior. They can signal underlying issues.
It's a powerful reminder to look beyond the surface. And the document makes a really important point about the shame some teenagers feel if they're struggling, especially when it looks like their peers are just sailing through.
Yeah, that comparison again.
Modeling supportive, destigmatizing language, like saying, it's okay to feel stuck sometimes, that doesn't mean you are stuck, can make such a positive difference. The core insight: normalize struggle and destigmatize mental health challenges.
Definitely. Now let's talk about the digital world. It's ever present for ninth graders. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Unavoidable.
The document notes they navigate an expanded digital landscape. Group texts are huge, intricate social media ecosystems.
Hmm.
Increased exposure to potentially risky content, even if indirectly. And of course, those pervasive issues of FOMO, fear of missing out, and constant social comparison.
It's a lot to handle on top of everything else. So what does the document suggest for parents and caregivers?
Some really practical strategies, like co-creating digital expectations, setting reasonable time limits together, discussing appropriate app usage, maybe establishing designated phone-free zones or times in the home.
Doing it with them, not just to them.
Exactly. The core insight: co-create digital expectations together. Teaching digital self-awareness is also crucial.
How do you do that?
Asking reflective questions like, how do you usually feel after spending time on that specific app? It encourages them to think critically about the impact on their mood and well-being.
Making them mindful of it.
Yes. And the advice to approach these conversations with curiosity, rather than judgment, asking something like, what do you think that video is trying to make you feel, creates a safer space for them to process what they're encountering online without feeling defensive.
That non-judgmental curiosity seems key. The core insight: foster digital self-awareness through open, non-judgmental conversations.
Precisely.
Okay, so when it comes to simply showing up and being present for a new high schooler, what does the document emphasize?
Some really fundamental things. Predictability can be incredibly reassuring. Teenagers, even when they push back against routine, often thrive on a degree of consistency.
Yeah.
It feels safe.
Right.
Affirming effort, rather than just outcomes, saying something like, I really noticed how much effort you put into studying for that test, regardless of the grade, reinforces a growth mindset.
Focus on the process.
Yes. And celebrating those small, often overlooked micro milestones, finishing a tough project, handling a tricky social situation okay, can build real momentum and confidence. The core insight: prioritize predictability, affirm effort, and celebrate small wins.
And it mentions speaking to the person they are becoming.
Yeah, acknowledging their developing thoughts, opinions, their sense of direction.
Mhm.
It shows you see and value their growing individuality, not just the kid they used to be.
I really liked the section on micro moments matter more than big talks.
Oh, that's a great one.
It's such a helpful reminder that those brief, informal interactions, a quick chat during a car ride, sharing a funny meme, a quick check-in before bed, can often be more impactful and certainly less anxiety-inducing
Definitely less pressure.
than those formal, sit-down, we need to talk moments that teenagers often instinctively resist. The core insight: Prioritize consistent micro moments of connection over infrequent big talks.
Exactly. Consistency builds that foundation of safety and trust. It allows them to open up in their own time in moments when they feel most comfortable.
Right.
Asking those open-ended questions that don't demand an immediate answer, like anything interesting or weird happened today that you might want to tell me about later, leaves the door open without applying pressure.
Gentle invitations.
Mm-hmm.
And navigating that tricky balance, offering support versus allowing them to take ownership. The document addresses advocacy without helicoptering.
Yes, that crucial balance. It offers practical advice on coaching them to self-advocate. Asking guiding questions like, have you considered emailing your teacher about that grade? Or would you like to practice what you might say before you ask for help?
So you're supporting, not doing it for them.
Exactly. You're building their skills. The core insight. Coach self-advocacy rather than intervening directly.
Right.
And establishing those regular, maybe weekly planning routines together, looking at assignments, scheduling study time without judgment, and then celebrating when they follow through on their plans, helps them develop those crucial organizational and time management skills themselves.
Building those systems we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
I think one of the most important perspective shifts the document encourages is really redefining what success looks like in ninth grade.
So important.
It's not about achieving perfection across the board, is it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's more about showing up consistently, learning from mistakes when they inevitably happen, recovering from setbacks.
Resilience.
Yes. Discovering new interests, practicing healthy boundaries, learning to bounce back from challenges is just as valuable, maybe even more valuable long-term, than the grades themselves. The core insight. Redefine success to include effort, learning from mistakes, and resilience.
That takes a lot of pressure off.
It should. And finally, the document provides a list of red flags worth watching.
Okay, what should folks look out for?
These include things like significant withdrawal from social activities they used to enjoy, consistent avoidance of school, not just wanting a day off, but real avoidance, a sudden hyperfixation on grades or physical appearance, increased secrecy or defensiveness beyond typical teenage stuff, or a noticeable increase in self-deprecating humor that feels kind of cutting.
Things that feel like a sustained shift.
Exactly. The key takeaway here is not to dismiss these changes as just typical high school stress, but to check in more deeply if these shifts are sustained and significant. The core insight. Don't dismiss persistent red flags as just high school stress. Check in deeper.
Really important distinction. And it concludes with some really thought-provoking caregiver reflection prompts.
Yeah, these are powerful.
Questions for, parents, caregivers, anyone supporting a ninth grader to really consider, like, am I preparing them for compliance or for genuine confidence?
Oof. Good one.
What am I modeling in terms of how to handle stress and setbacks? Do they feel safe making mistakes around me, or do they primarily feel judged? These encourage some real, honest self-assessment.
Absolutely. And questions like, what are my biggest fears about their high school experience? And how can I make sure my fears don't limit their freedom to grow?
Separating our stuff from their experience.
Yes. And am I communicating love and support based on their performance, or is it truly unconditional? These prompts really encourage us to look at our own motivations and how our actions might actually be landing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the ninth grade experience, it's clear this is a truly pivotal transition.
No doubt about it.
It's characterized by an incredible amount of rapid development on multiple levels, cognitive, emotional, social, academic. And with that comes a unique set of challenges. The consistent need for understanding, patience, and unwavering support, whether you're navigating it yourself or supporting someone you care about, seems absolutely paramount.
It really is. And I think the closing thought from the document summarizes it beautifully. Ninth grade is the first mile of their own road. You can't walk it for them.
Right.
But your steady encouragement, curiosity, and belief will echo in every step. Be the voice they still hear in the back of their mind. You're not alone. You're growing. You've got this.
Wow. That's a really resonant message to keep in mind. So whether you're currently in the midst of ninth grade, watching someone you care about navigate it, or maybe just reflecting on your own journey way back when, we hope this deep dive has provided some valuable insights and perhaps a fresh perspective. Keep observing, keep learning, and remember that a deeper understanding of this pivotal time can lead to stronger connections and hopefully a smoother journey forward for everyone involved.